Okay, now I've got to say I'm cheering on ByuN because I just want to see ByuN zest, you know? Plain and simple. It ain't complicated. I just kind of want to see ByuN zest. Initially, I was cheering on Solo last series because I was kind of like, well, if Zest loses, he would play ByuN. Now I'm cheering on ByuN. So that's my bias set out at the start of the game. Just to make it clear, because, you know, at this rate, the more YouTube comments I read, the more biased I am about all the players I actually am never biased about. So I think it's a new thing where I'm going to start saying, you know what, guys, I'm biased for this guy at the start of games, because at least then people can make their comments be truthful instead of just making up nonsense. And that's a win in my eyes. So we'll go with that. Let's go, ByuN. Solo's in the bottom left and ByuN's in the upper right. All seriousness. We'll see if ByuN can bounce back from a series which started very well for him. Right, he started off that first match against Solo very nicely. 1-0 lead, looked comfortable, looked confident. And then that game number 2, he really just kind of, you know, things fell apart a little bit. And game 3 became even more convincing for, from Solo, honestly. Can you guys hear screaming kids in the background, by the way, guys? Because, like, I can hear them through my headphones, and that sort of makes me feel like you guys might be able to hear them picking up on my microphone. In which case, I'm going to have to shut the window and get a little bit too warm, but... No, you guys don't? Okay. No screaming kids? Nice. Turns out our neighbors are very loud. So we obviously moved into the new house, right? And I've never really... So it's never really been a thing of having, like, loud... then the garden's just like next door to my window that I open, right? And so it's summer holidays, and these kids, they just run around screaming all day, and it's loud. I never knew. I never really thought of this. It's never really been something I've had to think about while casting before, but I actually have like background noise from the neighbors, and I'm like, what the hell? That's what kids do. That's all good. I don't begrudge them running around screaming. That's okay. I just, obviously it's something I have to think about when I'm casting now, you know, because I'd rather, you know, you guys not hear screaming kids than, anything else. I'm not saying they should shut up and never leave the house before someone says something dumb. Wardy hates children. This is why he casts Starcraft and not Fortnite. I am upset about this. They chat the screaming children on in my place. God damn it, guys. But we're gonna have a puppy soon, so we're gonna have... You guys remember, if you're a real old school Wardy viewer... You guys really didn't hear that? Oh my god. If you're a real old school Wardy viewer, you'll remember back when we had a little, when, one of my schnauzers, who unfortunately isn't with us anymore, was a puppy. And he was very loud. He was very, very loud, and, barked a lot, and... set out other dogs off barking, and the background barks were like a real thing of the stream a lot of the time. And it was, yeah, it was one of the reasons I kind of had to get like an office space outside of my parents' house, because I just couldn't deal. And back then I had like a worse microphone as well. Like I had like a blue Snowball, which just picked up everything too, right? So it really was like, it wasn't great. So we'll get that back probably a little bit as the little puppy joins our family in like 3 weeks or so. Ellie the Golden Retriever. If you've not seen her, she has an Instagram page. I have to double check what... I know what it's called, I'm just gonna have to double check what it's spelt like before I tell you guys it. But if you guys remind me, I'll link it to you guys after game 1. You can see little Ellie, who is very, very cute. Gonna be fun. Alright. Just talking through an early game where ByuN has completely changed up his strategy from the first series, where he went for this Marine Hellion attack most games with the medevac drop and stuff. This time he's going to play Cloak Banshees, something Solo will scout early. I don't think you can ever be upset, though, when Cloak Banshees are scouted, because, yeah, okay, it's a scout, but most of the time, it does help the Zerg say, right, well, maybe I don't need to prepare for some other things a little bit faster, but the Banshees themselves are still typically going to be useful. The only time I'd really say it's worth cancelling that is if the Overlord sees it when you're like maybe halfway through building the first Banshee. Maybe then you cancel Banshee 1, cancel Cloak, and you just say, cool, he's going to assume I have Banshees, so he's not going to do anything too aggressive, and I'm just going to cancel the Banshee because I just don't believe in it have to be in Scouted, you know. Hellions going to turn it back around as we do have our lair building in the main base. So just bringing that up. Hellions and the Reaper continuing down across to the Watchtower. A couple of evolution chambers continuing through. And that stim pack going to be about halfway done as well. So stim pack coming on in. Eyes on these two Banshees cloaked up so they don't get seen on their approach, giving still as little time as possible to respond, and boom, onto the mineral line for 3 drones already. A fairly successful start. Still a ways to go here, but can't complain about a full worker killed opening when the Banshees have only taken 1 spore crawler shot of damage. That is definitely steps in the right direction for a successful set of Banshees. So yeah, 4 drones down. These Banshees pull back out the left-hand side. The Carapace upgrade will start from Solar as plenty of Bane lanes are going to start morphing in as well on that natural expansion. So again, that underway. And this game just has a moment or two before anything else happens. That's a lag spike. Is that my PC crashing? That feels like my PC's crashed. That feels like that was my Starcraft. No, that was my PC. Well, that ain't good. Are we back? Oh, not back. Alright, we should be back. Sorry about that, guys. That sucks. Just gotta wait a second or two to make sure this is indeed back properly. Alright, hello guys, and welcome back. Sorry for that. So basically what just happened was my PC just froze up. But I think it was just my Starcraft / XSplit. The players didn't complain of any lag or anything. It wasn't my internet or anything, just my PC kind of froze up for a second. And my PC freezing up, it just turned the stream, like, XSplit stopped working for a second. And I didn't even stop streaming, but because it stopped its connecting to Twitch, I then had to turn it off and on. So a little bit weird, so sorry for a little bit of a hiccup there. You missed maybe a minute or so of honestly not very much happening. I don't think there's been any workers going down. I obviously try to keep an eye on it while sorting it out, but yeah, I don't think you guys really missed anything. A Banshee just died here to the left side, but I was also going to stick around and get another drone kill as ByuN is now pushing out down to the bottom side of this. So apologies for that, guys. Again, appreciate that was a little bit inconvenient, but yeah, hopefully nothing too much major missed as we do come on through. So this hatchery taking some damage on the bottom. As you see, the Lurk Den is building now from Solar. The Hive morphing in as well. This handful of Marines still just putting the pressure on and going to get rid of this hatchery. So now the game's going to focus around the left side. But with Hive and the Lurk Den on the way, that's something ByuN could not deal with in the games they played earlier when Solar got to Lurk attack. So that might be something that ByuN struggles with once again here as we settle down with a kill on the base, and I imagine now ByuN probably turns back home because there's nowhere else to really push just yet without stepping towards creep too much. He's got a lot of units at home, so this counterattack is not really destined to do very much. I'm actually impressed by how much is back here. The tanks aren't siege, but they just don't need to be. Solar's going to commit anyway. I think he committed because the tanks weren't siege, but honestly, there was just so many Marines. Maybe nice to force a stim, because you could argue, obviously, now that's a lot of damage done to those Marines. They've got to heal back up, but overall, not really a massive fan of that, as we do see our Marines and tanks moving through. Yeah, I mean, it just went a step too far forward before backing it up, and I feel like it was already obvious he was going to have to back it up, you know? Although maybe he just didn't quite see how far back the Marine lines went, which is something you had to run in deeper to figure out, so maybe a little bit of something there. Anyways, ByuN getting a siege up here and taking this position now to hit this left side base. He still has a drop down here looking to deny the bottom side if that comes back online. So we'll be aiming to deal with that if given the opportunity. Here we go, Ling Bing going to move through. Ooh, Solar halted there for a second, which is kind of weird. I imagine that was a miscontrol because I don't think there's any reason you'd want to stop your run into this army for half a second for any real reason. Honestly, ByuN trades pretty well. A few Banelings left, and he will continue to fight them off creep. Reinforcements now showing up. ByuN is the one with a lot of money left over behind this as well, so he'll be rebuilding much more easily. as we do see quite a bit of creep on the bottom side getting cleaned out. Now we still have this army out to the left and looking to maybe push with this as the reinforcements have come through. Solar has a supply lead, and here's the one thing I'm concerned about. Seismic Spines is finishing, the first lurkers are coming into play. Now ByuN is adding on extra command centers. Looked like we might get him to play a bit of a longer game from this. Pick up a tank in the bottom right. One tank pressing through is going to get sieged up. Gonna get abducted right away though. ByuN knows it's lurkers. With this amount of command centers building, I kind of think ByuN's going to drop a Ghost Academy and really start prepping for late game. It doesn't feel like he's going to be, you know, super, you know, he doesn't feel like he's aiming to kind of end this game right here and now. While the army's on the map, it's not really, and I think he knows it's not a setup that should just be able to win out. Guys, I feel like my PC is kind of struggling a little bit. I feel like I keep getting a couple of lag spikes and stuff, and it's not like internet lag. Feels like my PC's just stuttering. I might have to do a bit of a restart after this game, or at least restart Starcraft 2 and see if that helps out. I don't know what's going on. Maybe my PC's just been on for a couple of days too many because it's been uploading YouTube videos through the night and stuff. I'll have a look at it after this as we do see these Marines. I'll load back up. I mean, my PC shouldn't have any issues. It's a pretty good computer, especially if you're just streaming Starcraft, so hopefully nothing too major. These few Marines do come through, and that's going to be a Queen being shot at. Queen taking quite a bit of damage. Doesn't go down, though, so that's the end of that drop. And I do just worry because it does feel like this is the stage of the game where ByuN is going to be that little bit less able to stay active on the map. And that does seem to be the kind of game where ByuN oftentimes does find himself struggling. From the right-hand side, but with the SimCity there, Solar will not break anywhere, and Solar would be best focused maybe trying to get this base on the top, stop ByuN getting to 5 bases at this stage, and maybe while he makes a push up here, then run by this base or something. I feel like that would be one of his better options. A double drop here doesn't go very far. Medivacs get shot down by the Queens, and the Marines get cleaned up, so Solar defends on the natural, and oh, we lose a lurker there. Second lurker didn't go down, though, and maybe ByuN committing for that second lurker lost him a few too many units. Now the Lings stream through and kill the tanks. Now ByuN's going to make sure he can get into a position to deal with these lurkers. I mean, again, ghosts are on the way. We already have 4 of them up. Snipe's obviously a key, critical part of defending against lurkers. That's going to be an abduct. Okay, one blinding cloud, but then an EMP. Just the one blind cloud, and I don't think this should be a continued fight from Solar. I think this should be one of those fights he disengages from because it just wasn't really set up to do very well. Initially, maybe if he gets a couple of blind clouds off, he can make that opportunity for himself, but one blind cloud on a single siege tank, it's just not going to make the difference in that fight overall, so that's why you just got to back away. 5 more lurkers morphing, one of them a bit far forward, but ByuN maybe doesn't quite see it. That, or he sees it and he wants to wait for it to finish morphing, and then he's just going to snipe it to make sure it's not a cancel. Like, he's positioning nearby it. Maybe he just really did not notice that. I thought maybe you could kind of wait a little bit and maybe play around that in some way or something, but yeah, a little bit. Well, as you see, Ling's going to run in from the right side. ByuN going to sit between the buildings, just using that SimCity to its advantage once again. Well, Lings to ascend to the Ghost going to turn, and they're going to pick up a couple more Lings as well as we now go and attempt to pick off these rocks, opening up a more direct attack to one of the Terran bases. So it takes a lurker loss as some snipes do come on through. There we go, a little bit of a fight breaking out. We do see the first few snipes actually going off well. The main thing now is to not let these ghosts go down to the Lings. Does have one final medevac to evacuate with. Solar burrowed the Lings. I guess a bit of a mishap there as we do see him unloading. And with only Zerglings, this shouldn't be too much of a problem for ByuN. He should be able to kite back and to deal with that. Solar has so much money though, and that's something ByuN has to be cautious of. Solar can rebuild up very quickly and very heavily if necessary. Foundry Fortress here, a couple more SCVs pulled to repair it, and it will survive, and ByuN even gets a chase away on some of the few remaining Hydralisks. Now, as ByuN chases that away, Solo once again goes back home, rebuilds a little bit. ByuN does not really have the money to re-max right away. Like I say, that's definitely got to be one of the concerning factors for ByuN in this game right now, is he settles down around the top side. Looks like he's going to try and push forward with Ghosts again. I mean, I like ByuN's confidence. He does have an army supply lead. He's ready to be coming through and to be dropping some of these snipes. Take advantage of these aggressive opportunities. Don't be afraid. Have confidence in yourself. And he is going to end up picking off a base. So, rewarded for his bravery. This base will go down. Problem is, Solo has the entire bottom side of the map. And pushing into the bottom side of the map is difficult because all of those bases are quite far away from the Terran bases. So it's just a pretty substantial push distance. And a lot of time for the Zerg to counterattack this base up here. What ByuN might be able to do, though, is if he wants to start focusing on denying the bottom side of the map, he might be able to start focusing a little bit on just expanding on the right side, as this run-by does deadly damage. I mean, a lot of ghosts going down. It's expensive for ByuN. Yeah, very quickly, if ByuN expands here, he could maybe continue the attacks down to the south side much more easily, and he would be naturally defending the base while that happens. This Lurker sits between two scans, as I feel like ByuN's not quite noticed where those Lurker shots are coming from. Still trying to line up a few more snipes on Hydras. He is going to end up being pushed back. I like the start of this for ByuN, but it feels like as it's going on, he's maybe getting a bit too reckless. A few too many units still trying to trade. This one Lurker has 5 kills, and it was actually hitting a lot of shots as well, just in general. We line up some more snipes. We do hit the Lurkers once and twice to get rid of the 2 of them that are still in a reasonably annoying position. And Solo losing a lot as he trickles units into the Sim City once again. These few tanks obviously are just going to be abandoned, so ByuN will lose out on those. Supplies are really evening up though, and Solo is running out of the bank. Remember, he had a much larger bank to begin with here. Is ByuN just a couple trades away from maybe kind of getting Solo to run out of money? Because that's obviously a bit of a win condition you can rely on, as he for now has to lift up and go back home. I mean, a lot of ByuN's best moments have come from being back at home and defending. The tanks get dropped in the front, so there will be more literally tanks there, actually tanking damage than anything else. Run, Marauders, run! Gets another Lurker kill. Everything you kill off in these fights right now is really substantial, really important, and genuinely getting a lot of, really putting Solo into a much worse position. New round of Lurkers coming up. How many Lurkers on the map? Only one, so he's only going to have 4 Lurkers. It's not a lot. I mean, ByuN is also only playing with 3 Ghosts, so it's not like either player has a substantial amount of tech to work with here. They're both playing off of just a lot of kind of lower tech units, like a lot of Ling Bane with a small amount of Lurker and Viper support, a lot of Bio with a small amount of Ghost, and also Siege Tank support as well, is worth mentioning. The EMP's missed on the Vipers there. Extra units showing up. Can we take this fight? It is off creep, at least for ByuN. He's going to try and stand and fight a little bit. The Banes turn around. Honestly, when the Banes turn around, I get it, you don't want to be there anymore, but I feel like sometimes they turn around, and that's when ByuN actually starts to pick up some free kills. I guess that is kind of meant to happen. A whole new round of Lings coming through. Solo going to attack on in. These first few Lurkers taking a moment before they burrow up. Feels like the Lurkers don't have the proper support here, and maybe Solo went a bit too soon before his reinforcements were ready. A whole round of Lurkers go down. Overseers fall too, and that's something Solo can't actually afford to replace. He's at a state of the game where affording new Overseers is genuinely expensive because he has barely any gas. Some of the bases still mining for him don't have gases taken. He's basically got 0 gas, not 0, but he's got very little gas income compared to what he needs, and that's going to affect him a lot. So it's mostly going to be Ling streaming through, but honestly, it might just get the job done, as ByuN doesn't have the numbers to hold out. He couldn't rebuild himself as he struggled for economy, and Solo wins a grueling game number 1. As this is obviously bracket A for the prelims. Bracket B will be on the 9th of August, which is on Monday. And then next week, following that, it will be Wednesday and Thursday, I believe, for bracket C and bracket D, which will be then turning 16 players into 8 overall, and they will play in the playoffs. And again, those 8 players will also be invited into the main event of the WardiTV Summer Championship, which will be a $4,000 prize pool. Solo is bottom right, and ByuN is top left. And thank you so much. I'm going to murder your name. Duoff Dwarf. Dwarf. Kind of feels like you wanted me to try and say dwarf. But maybe I'm just being silly. Thank you so much for the Prime sub, though. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way, and thank you so much. Like I say, not just supporting me. It supports this tournament, which means we support the players. And that's what we are all about. Dwarf? Yeah, if you kind of have like... Because I'm saying like dwarf, dwarf. See what I mean? Like, it's like, it kind of ends up sounding like dwarf, but that might just be the way I'm reading the mess of vowels in the center there, you know? Dwarf is perfect, yeah? Nice. If you ever resub for a second month, please don't expect me to remember that, because I promise you I will not. I'm terrible at remembering. I swear down, there's some people who I must have asked, they're like 1+ year resubs. And they resub and I'm like, oh, I know I've asked how to say your name at least 5 times, and I still just can't remember. Ay, ay, ay. SCV on a bit of a wander up to the upper left. It's going to go on a bit of a move through. Up into the main base. Zergling speed on the way out from Solar as well, so just bringing this up. As, yeah, just kind of entertaining ourselves through a pretty regular early game without really too much to say of it. It was pool first though, right? Only 1 queen out right now. So it was a little bit more aggressive than usual on the side of Solar, maybe expecting a 2 racks. I know ByuN loves 3 racks proxy on this map, walling off like across here or something, or across here. So, yeah. Hellion is going to see those few Lings sneaking by. As Ling speed finishes up, it is a faster Ling speed than usual too, but there's not really too much else to take advantage of that. And this 1 Hellion and a few reinforcing Marines should be plenty to just make sure 4 Lings don't cause any chaos. So, looks as though it'll be alright. There's a second Hellion on the way. So you actually build a tech lab on the factory to only build another Hellion. What is our plan here, ByuN? What are we going for? What are we aiming for? I'm very, very interested as to what the heck's about to happen in this. Rax lifts off the reactor. It's going to go to the tech lab, and now we reactor out Hellions and we start up Sim. Medevac out. We actually have the gas for Liberator too, if ByuN wants to add in that extra bit of harassment, which he has been doing, and there it is, queuing up right now. And just, it's kind of like just another way of doing what he was doing in the earlier series. So a little bit of a bonus there. And kind of interesting that he feels most confident in just somewhat repeating what was done earlier, right? So I do find that kind of interesting. Just, yeah, like I say, repeating, but try and mix it up still a little bit then. It's interesting. Marines come through, and some queens will be engaged here as a little bit of damage being done. Not much for the Marines to do. The Hellions are going to come across now, and the Liberator as well, and this is where you can really hit in a few different places at the same time, and maybe that is where we're going to really start to see a difference building out of this, as this medevac of Marines. Going to take a turn around, and Hellions are moving forward. Lings wanted to go down to the low ground, but the Hellions are going to turn away from those Lings. The Siege is up just on the edge of the mineral patch, and there's going to be those drones pulling away from it. The Liberator now going to unsiege and try and go elsewhere. The Hellions could probably make a dive here. There's a lot of Lings in the main, so probably a good decision not to. The medevac on the bottom side goes down as well. ByuN not really finding everything he wants to today. It feels like... Honestly, it feels like ByuN's getting some decent setups, but he's struggling to really follow through from those and to really turn those into something beyond that, right? So... a little bit sad as you do see these queens going to push those Hellions back once more. I'm just going to be seeing that combat shield coming through, the additional racks coming through. And our siege tank going to be finishing up from ByuN as well. So just getting that siege tank finished. Another siege tank on the way. Rack's going to land on the reactor, and Baneling speed is building on the Baneling nest. And Hellions will continue onward to try and pick away at a couple of additional creep tumors here. As our melee upgrades, baneling speed, etc. All of this continuing through. Plenty of drones on the way out. We get a single drone on this right-hand side. It gets roasted, toasted, and he will die. At least he dies in creep spread, right? Do you reckon it feels nice to die in creep than dying off creep? Probably, right? Dying on familiar territory. It's almost like dying... Okay, this is a very morbid conversation. Let's move on. Just it turned out to be more morbid and went on for longer than I thought it was going to, so we'll just stop while we're still somewhat ahead. Creep is like a warm, slimy blanket. Kind of is, right? I'd imagine it's like, I mean, to us, it's like all gooey and horrible. For Zerg, that's like what they live in, right? So, yeah. You know, we like our soft, plushy carpets and nice hardwood floors. Zerg like sticky creep. Every time you take, stickier the better. Every time you step forward, you know, it drags your foot back a little bit. Doesn't want you to leave, or somehow that speeds Zerg up. Like I say, to us it's sticky. To them, it's speed enhancing. So let's see our Lings and Banes running through. The Queen's coming forward. Oh, decent target fire onto a couple of siege tanks. Sorry, onto a couple of Banelings from the siege tanks, but the counter attack is massive. 12 SCVs going down. We ain't done yet. There's a few Marines show up, but that's so many workers. What ByuN is doing over here is brilliant if he just wasn't losing so much behind it. A couple more Banes going down. A few more Lings being picked away at. Again, 1-1 upgrades finishing from Solar, so you will now have equal upgrades to fight ByuN off with, but ByuN still has a bit of a momentum with just his current standing army, so we'll see exactly how that will play out. There's a few Lings in the center here, going to get turned around pretty quickly. Now a couple of Banes are going to take a hit. On the south side, ByuN still trying to push this same position as before. And the Ling's getting on top of a siege tank. One Marine left in the front there, going to get cleaned out. And the rest of these Marines still going for a little bit of a push on through. And themselves across the map here. So let's see how we'll do as we have to lift up in the end. So those medevacs fly away. Yeah, still have this little bit of pressure on the bottom side. Again, this is usually what ByuN's been able to do in these games. He's been able to put on good pressure. It just gets to a point where Solar says no longer. And that's where ByuN kind of loses steam, or he gets held back, and then the lurkers get up, and that's where Solar's been winning these games. So that's kind of been the way in which things have gone as of late, at least, as we see these Marines coming back through. Biddling Bane jumping on top of this. Tanks firing, Ling Bane still coming through onto this. Bane's going to get turned around as the Marines continue in, and they do just want to jump on this hatchery. Solar's struggling to fight, and his supply's starting to be lacking as well, just dropping down a little bit further. A couple more Banes don't quite manage to connect there, as these few Queens coming through as well. So they make their way on top of these tanks, and tanks will go down. 6 workers killed during this as there's a drop on the 3 o'clock base. But let's watch here, because these new reinforcements are showing up. Okay, that's not going to break out in a fight just yet, so let's look at this drop, which has been picking off workers. And that hatchery's going down. Solar's going to re-engage down here before anywhere else. And honestly, doesn't feel like it's gone that well. He cleans up a tank, but 2 tanks still in the background. One Baneling gets target fired down, and Solar does not have the numbers to stay alive. And ByuN's going to bounce back to tie us up. All of our games going to Game 3 today. And ByuN in this series. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because sometimes I would kind of tend to agree that maybe ByuN looks a little bit tired or so. But then I'm like, well, he wanted to play today, so he must have, it's not like he's being forced into playing today. He's obviously already known he was going to play today kind of thing. So then I kind of wonder about it a little bit. So yeah. Maybe it's the wrist. Well, the wrist is always an interesting discussion point when it comes to ByuN, because he does not seem to have a lot of wrist issues outside of GSL. Like, he never brings it up. He never has to pause during online events due to his wrist. So I don't know if it's really a wrist thing, You know what I mean? I've always been skeptical about his risks because he was very, when we first talked to him about it as well, like outside of, you know, when we're talking to him for an event or something, he says, my wrist only ever bothers me in the GSL studio, you know? So yeah. Done. I've got 2 racks out over here, sorry. Just had to sort something with someone on the other screen quickly. There's a couple of SCVs going to move on down. So these racks kind of far away. Like, this isn't really a proper proxy rack. So you can see the follow-up to this is seemingly going to be Reaper production. So, Reapers to follow this up. Basically, you're trying to get Solar to overreact initially so that then the Reapers show up and Solar's like, crap, I don't really have a response to, you know, I'm not really ready for Reapers kind of thing. And the Marines go down, but he actually gets the second drone kill, and that's a lot of drones pulled. I mean, I do agree it's important to not let the bunker go up, but now the first Reaper shows up, and I mean, he can kite those Lings for a while. Queens aren't ready yet either. He's really prioritized Lings initially, so the Queens were slowed. They're just coming backwards and forwards. Again, the couple Queens going to be finishing up as well. Yeah, so I mean, a Queen pops out. Just going to be seeing our Reaper hanging back a little bit then as, again, the Queen going to put some damage in. And just going to be seeing the second Reaper showing up as well, so bringing this together. I mean, this is where we'll see what ByuN can do with a whole bunch of Reapers. I mean, this used to be his, you know, this used to be what ByuN would play in his prime, right? You know, this was ByuN at his best when he was playing the Reapers. So let's see what the grenades are like. Let's see what the micro is like. Right now, he's already forced the Queen's high ground because the Queens have to then run low ground off of creep. It's going to give you a while where you can fight Lings and maybe drones without the Queens being there. That gives you an advantageous fight to begin with. Good grenade going to blast the Queen back again. Anytime you have the Queen spent walking instead of fighting is a good moment for you here as ByuN. Unfortunately, he loses 1 Reaper. Now the other Reaper's going to hop on up as the other few Lings coming through. Just going to keep the pressure up, and a couple Queens getting bumped back still. Just going to see those couple Queens still picking away at the Reapers, and another one of them going down. Unfortunately, there, I got to say that ByuN is just not quite doing what he needs. He's going to get that SCV here and just going to be jumping onto this base. This is the problem for ByuN. He had to float those barracks back home, so he's not being able to have any units at home. He only has 5 army supply in the game right now, in fact, so really in a bit of trouble off this open. It's definitely not gone well for him. That stim pack coming through, and the third CC going to lift off and float down to the low ground. I see those Lings going to go jump on top of the rocks there. So I'm just going to go jump onto that and obviously clear out that space. That's one of the more annoying spaces to deal with when a Terran gets into position. So again, Lings is going to be picking their way through the rocks there. Just going to see 1-1 upgrades and stim on the way through in that armory. Just on the way up in the main base as well. So that armory coming through, that overlord does get pushed away to that far left-hand side, so it's just going to be kept out of the main base. I was wondering, what does ByuN turn this into? I mean, he does get a third CC down, but he's still significantly behind in workers. I'm still just clearing out in the Marine Hellion at home. I do wonder if there's a way that ByuN maybe hits something of a timing or some sort of aggression that could work very well for him. He will have 1-1 upgrades in his favor, and that's the one key thing I'm looking at here, right? The ability to be like, well, hey, I've got 1-1, and with 1-1 against 0-0, I'd say it's always somewhat, possible. Unless Sola truly just overwhelms this army. These Lings gonna catch the Marines. I mean, that's half the Marines already dead, though, and that's not ideal. And then the Hellions show up too, so imagine these Hellions were here to protect the Marines at first, then the Lings get roasted, they cannot justify that jump onto the Marines. It's a completely different fight. It's now the Hellions are going to end up being chased away, and on their own, they just can't really fight the Banelings or anything else. That's going to be seeing the Lingbane still gathering up in the center, and the few Hellions continuing through too. The Ling's going to continue to chase on forward, and these Hellions do just continue to escape out of there. Queen's coming through, the Hellion's still going to be deflected. This is one of the problems now, though, is that Solo's just going to have, like, the entirety of the map to play with here. He's going to be able to just take control of this entire map, and then it's going to be so difficult for ByuN to do anything. So Solo's basically guaranteed to get up into lurkers and that kind of great composition that he seems to love playing on. It just doesn't seem as though ByuN will be able to stop him, so then ByuN's going to be forced to play late game against that, which has been something ByuN has looked typically weak against through. Just going to see that Lingbane continuing through. The Marine's going to lift up into the medevacs as well. Now just going to escape away to the side. So Marines get to escape out of there. It's tough. It's really tough. And the thing is, Solo doesn't have a massive supply lead because he's investing into so much tech. You know, he's going Hive, Lurker Den, 2-2, Groove Spines, all of this at the same time, even a Dropper Lord. So he's investing into all of that. If he wanted to max out, he probably could have maxed out on Lingbane, but he knows that this game will just be won, absolutely, if he makes his way slowly into the Lurkers and plays from there. So he'll play for that. ByuN's going to go Drilling Claws for the Widow Mines. The problem is with the Widow Mines, they're not going to be that useful once the Lurkers are out. Widow Mine drops are still going to be decent, but, you know, Widow Mines themselves not going to help a lot against Lurkers. That's why I have liked the tanks for ByuN in previous games. If you could get Widow Mines out and maybe going up to Ghosts, that's something that could obviously be reasonable here, as we're going to be seeing this Widow Mine gets burrowed on the top. Let's see 11 SCVs going down. And he's going to roll on through. They're going to connect in on a bunch of these Marines. So a lot of those Marines going down as well. Going to see some Hellbats out the front from ByuN hanging around as well. More of this army from ByuN showing up, and he's going to go after those Lings, but it feels like Solo's just, again, going to wait for Vipers, wait for Lurkers, and then take another fight. Army continues to pull back. Widowmine's just going to be fallen already. Turns out Solo doesn't really need all the tech, huh? He's just going to steamroll forward with this. Does that go enough far enough forward to really deal further damage here? Baby doesn't get the fourth, so it's kind of just an army trade. I just do escape away, and the Bioforce still coming through. Those few Zerglings making their way down. Medevac's just going to be escaping away and just going to be seeing... I mean, ByuN had to attempt to kind of somewhat counter or something during this, right? I mean, he can't just sit at home and keep on taking the blows, but... yeah. I think it's just a rough game, guys. ByuN was kind of behind early. His opening did not set him up for greatness, that's for sure. And unfortunately, we're seeing the repercussions of that right now as well. As you just see those couple of parasitic bombs picking off some medevacs. GG. And Solo is going to win this out 2-1 over ByuN and go to the grand finals for rematch.